Okay, good afternoon here in the US. The time zone is different. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Morgan State University. I welcome you to our research series organized by the Intellectual Committee at the Department of Advanced Studies, Leadership and Policy. This is one of the largest graduate-only departments with 200 plus doctoral students. This committee organizes a regular talk series on a wider range of higher education topics. Today's session focuses on research and publication, and I have invited expert scholars from different fields and institutions to share their publication journey and then tips for publications. I sincerely appreciate you all for joining us this particular hour, despite your busy schedule. I have two items on my agenda here. The first one, you will hear from our panelists on their views on the research tips and publication opportunities. The second one, you will meet the winners of the Global Essay Project organized by the Star Scholars Network. We will also take questions from our audience, members in the audience. My name is Krishna Bista, and I'm a professor of higher education at Morgan State University. I'm also the founding editor of the Journal of International Students and the Global Student Mobility Series editor for Routledge. I invite all of you to respond this particular question using the chat room and maybe your recent publication as well. Please continue using the chat room. The bigger question for the day is what tips or suggestions do you offer for our emerging scholars who are excited to publish their articles and the books? And we have scheduled 60 minutes for this afternoon here. Let me welcome and invite our panelists for this particular hour. Each panelist will take maybe a minute or so to introduce themselves and share their recent publication or current projects. Let's follow the same order as you see here on the screen, starting from Lisa all the way to JR. Floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Lisa Flores. I am professor and associate chair of diversity inclusion in the Department of Psychological Sciences at the University of Missouri. I serve as PI or have served as PI on 3 different NSF grant projects that have supported my research. I am past editor of the Journal of Career Development. I served as editor for that journal from 2005 to 2022. I'm current associate editor of the Journal of Counseling Psychology, and I'm also the legacy and forum editor for the Counseling Psychologist. Over my career, I've served on the editorial board for about 6 or 7 other journals as well. My research focuses on the career development of women and Latinx individuals and the integration of Latinx immigrants in rural community in the Midwest. And I have published over 100 journal articles, book chapters in this area. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Colleen Doyle. I am originally from Indiana, but I reside in Ireland where I work at University College Dublin. I consider myself a research practitioner, so some of you may be aligned similarly. I brought a prop with me for this activity. I recently contributed a chapter to this book, and even though it's not really my area, I have a wide range of interests. I primarily am interested in student experience, first-year transition, emerging adulthood, but I broke out of my comfort zone to publish a chapter in a book on queerness in higher education with colleagues from University College Dublin and Maynooth University. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today. I also recently published in a Star Scholars publication. I published a case study of Irish students studying abroad in America. And I have a very proud 1 peer-reviewed journal article about emerging adulthood for those of you who like that topic, in the Journal of Higher Education Research. No, Higher Education, HERDSA, Higher Education Research and Development. I think I've just screwed up my own introduction there. But anyway, I'm delighted to be joining you evening time in Ireland, and I'll let the next person speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen, and well, thank you, everyone, and it's wonderful being here. I'm very honored. So I'm Birgit Schreiber. I've got one foot in South Africa, where I've worked and lived most of my adult life, and I've recently moved to Germany, so I'm in the center of Europe at the moment. Well, we all think we're the center of somewhere, but somehow it does feel like the center here. And I'm here, I'm part of the Africa Center. So my research usually combines an African perspective and an emerging perspective, a global South perspective, with perhaps a more established knowledge and disciplines and scholarship. I've been in student affairs most of my life. I've published not quite as much as Lisa, but also quite a lot. I've been on executive editorial boards, and I've started our journal 10 years ago, a Journal of Student Affairs in Africa. So I'm quite versed in the writing process and in the publishing end and the back end of that writing process. And I hope to share some of my thoughts with you a bit later. Just quickly, what I recently published and what's been very exciting is that I've been part of a team of collaborators. It's 4 of us from 4 different continents, and we've been writing quite prolifically about data we collect across the globe in our different regions, and we put that together, and a lot of good has come out of that. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good to be in this space with all of you. I am Chris Salinas, Associate Professor at Florida Atlantic University. My research explores how historically marginalized communities experience the 3 levels of oppression at the institutional, cultural, and individual level. I am the founder and editor-in-chief for the journal Committed to Social Change on Race and Ethnicity, published in partnership with the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity. And I serve in many other editorial boards, have written or edited a total of 6 books, and I look forward to engaging with all of you in this conversation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Fall from the Office of General Counsel, a little different place from the rest of my colleagues here, but I also have a PhD in Administration and Higher Education, and published in book chapters and have various reviews and institutional texts to have. Lately, I was a case study in a recent book that came out, the International Student Identities and Mental Wellbeing, and then also working on law review articles. My preliminary area of expertise is international study abroad and liability issues associated with that, as well as international student issues in the United States.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for the invitation, Dr. Vista, and I'm really delighted to be here, and especially among such esteemed panelists. So I clearly remember attending this very session last year, and the session provided me with very helpful insight in guiding my publication journey, and I'm very excited to be here today to share my experience. So my name is Marcia Sun, and currently I am studying at Oklahoma State University, pursuing a PhD in educational leadership and policy studies in higher education. And my research interests focus on cross-cultural integration process and developing programs to better support and foster a sense of belonging among international students, retention and access for international students, and the intersections of identities and cultural competencies in higher education. So recently, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Vista in the publication of the chapters of the book, International Graduate and Doctoral Student Experience, Navigating Relationships and Resources and Resilience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ken Guan. I'm currently the Director of Student Engagement at Fuller Theological Seminary. It's such an honor to be here, and I recognize many familiar faces, and thank you for having me here. Recently, I contributed to a, a book chapter in actually one of our participants here, Dr. Katie Koo and her colleagues. I contribute to their book. Name is called the International Student Identities and Mental Health, and I co-wrote a chapter with another 3 scholars and practitioners It's called Welcome to the United States, Promising Practices for Orientation Programs that Support International Student Mental Well-Being. And my research interest is in measuring, assessing institutional efforts in integrating and engaging students, particularly on the international student side. So nice to meet you, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liz Neria. I am an international student. I'm currently a PhD candidate in the program of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies at Oklahoma State University. I am the editor of the online publication, The Scholar Practitioner. I am working on my dissertation, which is focused on student leadership development. And I am also working on several collaborative research about hidden student populations, international students' experiences, as well as experiences of doctoral students. My recent publication is a book chapter about how international students fostered leadership resiliency during the pandemic. And I am so glad to participate today in this panel.
Hi, all. My name is J.R. Gould. Again, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bista, for this invitation. Very honored to be here. So I am a professional speaker. I specialize in DEI and mental health. I have spoken, trained college students at over 50 different universities. So it's a privilege to be here. And this is my first time to publish something. So I feel extremely excited and honored. So I got invited to be one of the authors for this book, International Student Identities and Mental Well-Being. In my chapter, which along with my co-author, Dr. Mandy Hansen, we focus on the mental health considerations for East Asian international student men. So it's a case study book specifically focusing on international student men from Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam, because these four countries are one very similar historical cultural similarity, which is Confucianism. And the chapter, the case study, is about how universities, different student affair programs, and even on the academic side, because I also taught at University of Colorado a handful of times. So how these programs can sufficiently support these international male students from these East Asian countries. So thank you all.
Thank you. So this is fabulous. Anyone in the room has any questions about the publications or looking for the journals at the book project, this is the group to reach out. If we cannot address the problem here, probably no one can do it. So please, if you have any burning questions, anything, please reach out this group. So I feel so proud and privileged to have all of you together on the same platform. So we move on to the discussion. I do have a couple of questions for the panel. So let's move on the very first question here. What was the most challenging aspect of the publication process for you, and how did you overcome it? Maybe some of you can chime in, maybe starting from Lisa.
Sure, thank you. So for me, I was very involved in research as a graduate student. And I think a very pivotal moment for me was when I submitted my dissertation project for publication. And I got the reviews back and read it and drove home that night thinking, I am not cut out to be a researcher. This is not for me. I read it as very critical, as a rejection. When I shared the reviews with my co-author, she had the complete opposite reaction than I did, and was super excited. And was like, Lisa, we have an opportunity to resubmit it. So for me, I think the most challenging aspect was not knowing that there is this journal culture. There's a culture to publishing that even as a doctoral student, I don't think I fully understood. And it took some time as a professional submitting my own work, but most importantly, I think serving as a reviewer, serving as an ad hoc reviewer, serving as an editorial board member, seeing the other side of the process, not just as the author part, but seeing the process from the reviewer's perspective, really just opened my world to learning that this is a process. There's some really key parts of this culture that you don't know and won't learn without just trying and without working with people who have experience in the, with publications, to be able to tell you, oh, that revise and resubmit is actually a positive decision. And nobody gets accepted. Nobody gets their paper accepted. I don't think I have ever had a submission accepted with the first review. So I think just learning some of those pieces through experience and through collaborators has been really critical for me in my journey and development as a researcher.
So Lisa, it's so great you reflect on that sort of personal part of that writing process. And I thought for me also what was very important in writing and getting a piece done is knowing what my style of work is. And when you recognize your own style, I work very well with people that complement me. So and my style has changed over time, but I sometimes get quite, I struggle with deadlines. I struggle when I set them myself, I struggle very much because other things creep in. So when I write with others, they keep me to my deadlines. So I write with teams. So 80%, 70% of my work has been publishing with collaborators, with partners, a friend, a colleague, or a team. And that has helped me stick to deadlines. We meet every 2 weeks, things need to be done. So I know what my strengths are, and I partner with people who can compensate and work with me on the areas I need support on. So that has worked for me. The second part I thought I reflect on is in terms of what to write about. I think it works well to write about things that you know about. So write about your experience, your lens, your vantage point, your place that you're in, the context you're in. That is really useful. And then sometimes comes a time when you think, God, there's an area I really don't know much about, and you immerse yourself and you force yourself to write something in that area. So in the SDGs, the SDGs have recently, over the last 5 years, become important. We all kind of needed to learn about that, and I threw myself into that and I forced myself. So on the one hand, write about what you know, but also if there's a gap, identify that and go for that gap and see and read up on it. And the last one, Chris, I want to pick up also on I share with Lisa that feeling that reviewing manuscripts help you get a lens for how one writes. So offer yourself as a reviewer in journals for books, get involved in the publishing side. Of course, publishing is, the other side of the submission once you submit it, but review articles, because that'll help you be kind of a disciplined writer in terms of, what am I talking about? How do I locate what I write about? And how do I discuss my findings? So engage yourself or review as much as you can. I think that skills the eye, it skills the mind.
Sure, I can share myself. I have to start off with thanking my co-author, Dr. Minty Hansen. Without her encouragement, I probably wouldn't do this. And, because talking about challenges is that throughout my whole life, I hated writing. I can just tell, even when I was going through getting my master, I just hated writing. And last 5 years, I committed myself every month, I would write a blog and I would send it out to my followers. So I started writing more and more. And I would say 1 in 5 of my blogs is researched. I heavily researched my paper. For example, I've written quite a lot about Asian American men and mental health, right? Based on research, different mental health articles. So when Dr. Minty Hansen, when she approached me and asked me if I want to be a co-author, of course, it is talking about mental health. It is anxiety, that there's self-loathing, that there's no way, and I'm not smart enough, especially a journal, an academic journal, right? Even though I have worked with higher education for over 15 years, but still, and I've taught classes at University of Colorado, but like in my head, I'm now a PhD, I'm now like a Fulbright professor, Fulbright, you name it, right? All these internal struggles, negativities. I think that was the hardest thing for me to overcome. Even when I was writing it, right? Even when I was submitted for editing, like when I see Katie Guo and other editor, when they send back feedbacks, like it's that there were like more red lines than black font words, it hurts, right? Not only hurts, it brings up all these self-doubts that like I can do it, I cannot do it. But again, I have to give a lot of thanks to my co-author, Dr. Mandy Hinson, and then kind of going back to what Bridget, is that your name? What we're talking about is that ultimately I keep writing, keep moving forward because this case study, this chapter about East Asian international student, male international student, is based on my own experience. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. As an immigrant, as an international student, I went through the challenges, and I have working with majority Asian American or Asian college students across the country. I have experienced seeing their similar challenges that a lot of these students are going through. And all we need to do is provide that little additional support that could make their life experience in the United States on a higher campus a little bit better. It's that little support. Therefore, just having this why, this motivation, something that I love, that I'm passionate about, that I care, that kind of guides me through all these internal and external challenges. So thank you.
Colleen?
Hi, everybody. I have two things that come to mind in terms of the publication process. One is flexibility and the other is time. And for me, they're both related. So when you're in a practitioner or a student affairs professional role, you may not have the time to write during your day job. Or as I've experienced, I had a boss who simply did not understand why I might want to take part in publishing and writing and scholarly work. So that was quite difficult. And so in order to do what I wanted to do, I needed to find the time. And it meant that if I wasn't permitted or allowed to do scholarly work during the day, 9 to 5 as part of my role, then as I was so driven, then I was going to have to find the time in the evening. And that can be really, really difficult. Let's just be honest about it. So in terms of flexibility, said book proposal came out. I knew I wanted to contribute. It was an area I had never worked in before on a scholarly level. But because I faced so many challenges, I had a notion of what I was going to do the research on in order to publish in the book. But because of all the challenges I was facing in my day job, I had to be flexible and shift gears to the point that I pulled in 2 more co-authors and did a very different piece of work as to what I had anticipated from the start. And in fact, the proposal that was accepted was going to be very different. Now, thankfully, the editors were happy to get, sort of a counter argument as to why the proposed chapter was going to change radically and why it was going to be better than what was previously proposed. So I just want to plant those seeds of flexibility, whether it's the journal you're approaching or the methodology you're using or the line of argument or whatever, and being able to find time, because that's what it takes to publish.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful to hear from you all. Let's move to the second questions I do have for the panel. How do you choose the right venue for your publication, and what factors do you consider? Maybe starting from Chris.
Yeah, hello everyone again. So there's a lot of factors that play a role. I think number one is me being well, when I was on a tenure track, I had to consider what does my university considers for my promotion and tenure. So that's number one. So I had to look for journals that are ranked and my peers, my colleagues perceive as high ranking as well. So that's number one. Number two is I had to think about timeline. And at the beginning, when I was publishing, it is hard to know how long some journals will take. But the more you do it, the more you learn each journal. So there are some journals that I know it will take up to 4 or 5 years to get published, right? I have a couple of pieces that it took me 4 or 5 years to get submitted for review, revised and resubmitted, and if it got accepted. So that's what the other thing that I have learned, to understand the process and how long each journal might take. But in order for me to understand and learn that process, I have to submit and be patient. Also, I have learned to be collegial and respectful to editors and to the reviewers, because even as a reviewer, I hear or get a lot of have received a lot of mean emails, rude emails. I think one of the things that I think about is, as an editor, I'm doing other people's research, not my own research, right? But I think I am committed to doing this work to help and elevate other scholars and other people in this platform. And to finalize, my last thought is, based on the last question, one of the things that I have learned is that I have to read in order for me to write. If I'm not reading, I can't write.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback off that, I thought Cristobal said something, finding, related to where you are in life, right? So, if you're looking for tenure, at your school, there are very specific journals that they want you to publish in, and those are requirements. In fact, having the experience that I have here, I also handle all the immigration for the university, is that, when you're looking at, and this just got me into the faculty hiring process more so than I'm sure any general counsel ever has, is you learn what the exact requirements are for business and for finance, and you learn the journals, and you see how candidates are judged against their publications. And so if where you are in life is you're publishing for your future, then those journals absolutely matter. I will tell you about a different track for those of you who are not tenure track. Is for me, it's the journals that I read the most, and those are the places where I want to be published. Those are the conversations I want to contribute to. So, for example, I'm not aware of a single job on this campus, since we don't have a law school that requires publication in the Journal of College and University Law. And it took me 4 years to get my article published in there, but it's published, it's there. I'm very proud of it. I've added to the conversation, and that was my goal, right? And so to try to help out other scholars and to open a field of inquiry that others could contribute to. So that's was my factors. And so then after that, I also had a dissertation that I wanted to get published. And so then I tried to look at, I had to step outside my own comfort zone for what I read, and what do individuals with these focuses read. And mine were international students attending university law schools or American law schools. And looking at where's the best place to publish those. And to go back to something that I think was said before, is that sometimes you may think your article's awesome, other people may not. It's how you build from there. And I was rejected from almost every journal I submitted my dissertation to. Luckily, there were the nice people who were putting together the international student identities and mental well-being, and allowed me to pare that topic down to a case study, which I think was helpful and contributory. But it really is, are you married to your work, or are you comfortable changing journals, making a derivative of your work? In what venue, what voice do you want to have, and how do you want that voice to be heard?
Well, I like to contribute several advice. I am currently a practitioner, and my work consists of working with all populations on my campus, and I really don't have a lot of time to write. But after I graduate, but something I really wish is publish my dissertation. But I think someday I will make sure to do that. Actually, I have started the process right after my doctoral program, and I remember one of the best advice I received from my advisor, chair of the committee, is to shoot high. And it seems very intimidating, some big journals, and as a new scholar or new a doctoral grad, and how am I going to publish that an article in such a prominent journal? Well, the side benefit is you get precious feedback that will help you to improve your writing, your the knowledge you contribute. And without further ado, and another one is earlier Cristobal mentioned about having a timeline. So really time yourself well. And I remember I read something about stagger your timeline. You can plan to publish, for example, 4 articles a year or 2 years, but then each has a different timeline. So while you're waiting for feedback, you can submit something else to another journal and another one. So you have 4 at the same time. You don't have to wait for one article to be published and then write another one. Another one would be addressed to the population and targeted audience. I will have to mention that I highly benefit from reading Journal of International Students, and many articles that I quoted in my dissertation, and is from this this excellent journal. So journal like this addressed to the specific population and targeted audience. They will have colleagues who want to read your articles. They're desperate, want to know what you know and what you have to share. And also write about what you're interested. From my work, I kind of get interested in student government and online student engagement, and those are fascinating to me. That give me motivation to write. And also I can benefit myself from doing the research, the scan of the environment, as well benefiting my colleagues. Also, can you publish something from your previous work? Don't let those work go in vain. If there's just don't be picky. If there's a journal would like to accept your previous work, do that. From your previous presentation, from your class paper, and by all means, and your blog. And last but not least, do you have someone? Can you co-publish with someone, whether it's experienced scholar, your professor, and a seasoned professional? If you don't have, feel free, definitely go to attend professional conferences and network. And then your friends, your colleagues, and you all can start collaboration to, the opportunity will come to you. Then you can start publishing. For example, the article we just collaborated on Dr. Ku's a book. This is from a networking from a circle of colleagues we co-wrote together.
Well, when you are a novice researcher like me, sometimes we can look after those journals that we some professors or colleagues recommend us. But I think that's something that I just go and look after in those journals is to look for the aims and the scope, because sometimes I think that, my proposal or, my study can fit, but if I go, and look for articles that are published in that journal and, read deeply, on that aims and scope, maybe it won't fit so well. So I think that one thing that I check, after looking for the journal is the aims and the scope of that journal. And, as my colleagues already said, well, I also check if it is whether peer review, because that reflects a quality, in the process for selection and publication. And also I consider, indexing of the journal or whether it is open access, because those things will give exposure to your manuscript. So that would be, some recommendation that I can give as a novice researcher.
For me, I think the process of selecting the appropriate venue for publications has become increasingly complex due to the proliferation of journals, areas of specialization, and emergence of interdisciplinary topics. So for me, I think the first thing I would say that it's very important to join the STARS Scholars Network. And I believe Dr. Bista is the vice president for the STARS Scholars Network. So once you join, you will have access to various opportunities to consider your venue for publication, such as the annual global conference, the Journal of International Students, the Journal of Comparative International Higher Education, Rutledge Study of Global Student Mobility, and Journal of Trauma Studies in Education, just to name a few. So after researching on this topic, I have 4 factors that I keep in mind when selecting the venue or journal that is a good match for my research. So the first question I ask myself is, what are the aims and scopes of the venue and journal, like my colleague Liz said. So I think this information is usually readily available on the journal's homepage, and I usually look for the section title about the journal or full aims and scope or something similar to that. And then browsing through this page will provide me with key information about whether my research might be a good match for the journal. So the second question I ask myself is, has the journal published articles that are similar to my work? So once you have identified a few journals you might like to publish your work, your manuscript based on their broad aims and scope, consider performing a search with the keywords or titles of your manuscript to determine whether the journal has published work that are similar to yours. So I try to aim to identify 3 to 5 papers published within the last 5 years to try to determine whether these papers are similar to my research in terms of quality and scope, and identifying previous published papers in my specific sub area is an excellent evidence that your research topic is of interest to the audience of that particular venue, which will increase the chances of review. So the third question I ask myself is, what are the journal's restrictions? I think it's really essential to check the information for author section for your targeted venue or journal to determine the restrictions. And sometimes it's very important to know that restrictions are also related to word count. So, and I remember Liz and I had trouble really concising our manuscript to fit the size of the restriction for the authors. So the fourth question I ask myself is, what is the journal's impact factor? So the validity of the journal's impact factor as a matrix for journal quality is controversial due to many factors that can influence the rating achieved, and the fact that not all of these factors are directly related to the quality of publication within the journal. This is the reason that I consider this as my last factor. However, the impact factor remains as a default method for determining the quality and reputation of a journal. So just in conclusion, so after all the hard work that goes into performing a successful research, the final crucial step is to choose the right venue to publish. So I read that there are over 9,500 journals in the directory of open access journal alone. So I think choosing the best one can be very daunting. So I think keeping in mind the 4 points that I talked about, the aims and scope, identifying the paper that are similar in quality and scope, and then determining the restrictions, and the fourth one, considering the impact factor and the potential reach, could ensure a smoother pathway to publication.
Thank you so much to hear both from the scholars, doctoral student and faculty in the room, and also practitioner is eye-opening. I do have one more questions if anybody wants to chime in regarding the improving the quality of the research papers and making them more appealing. Panelists have touched some of the aspect. We want to take 1 or 2 responses quickly. Anybody's okay?
If I could just write the opening and just get going, and then go back to the opening at the end and make it the strongest, most compelling 2 paragraphs you can write. Like really, you think about the amount of papers that people have to review, and I've been on a couple conferences for my own professional, and it's really about getting started. So just whatever the opening gets you started, that's great, but then go back and make sure that opening is really strong. I think that's people have when you look at journals and how they're published, really 2-3 paragraphs is all you see on that first page, and you have 2 and 3 paragraphs to get people to the rest of the article.
I totally agree with that. I think even before that, and this goes back to some of Marcia's points, really reviewing the manuscript submission guidelines. Each journal is going to have different guidelines, maybe different formatting styles that they use, and different page lengths, making sure that your manuscript is prepared according to those guidelines. I would also recommend that you have a colleague, multiple people review and give feedback on your paper before you submit it. I would say for me as a reviewer and as an editor, before I even start reading it, I will know, get a sense of if the paper or the manuscript is going to be good just by the quality of how it is prepared. But then certainly, as Michael had mentioned, after reading the first page or 2 pages, if you haven't hooked me in by then, you're not going to hook me in the details later on.
I would just chime in for a little bit. So I think there are several tips that you could consider. So the first one I would say is to have a focus and a vision for your research paper. So I think it's key to successful publishing with a high quality article is to get a vision. So a reason, a purpose for writing the paper in the first place. So once you have a vision for your research, it may be useful for you to write down and keep it in a constant view to remind you of your mission. So the second one tip is to decide on the type of academic article that you want to write. So there are so many options for you to select from when you're considering the prospect of publishing scholarly work. So for writing academic article, you can choose from different types such as empirical research, conceptual or theoretical articles, teaching notes, review papers, field research, technical reports, case studies, analyses, industry reports and reviews, book reviews, commentaries. So I think it's really important to determine the type of article that you want to write about and focus on that. So the last tip that I would say is I know this is very obvious, but the title, abstract, and keywords are very essential because they summarize your research paper. So the title, abstract, and the keywords should be optimized to reflect your main research questions and the purpose of your paper, and then also exhibit publishing trend in a particular field of study and in terms of the concept used by the other researchers to find papers similar to your articles.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Aribi from Biology Department at Morgan State University. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so proud of what Dr. Krishna is doing, organizing this. I didn't even know it happens every year. I think at this point, I would love to join the Star Scholars. I love to publish. For a long time, I've not been publishing, and I want to get back into it, and I'm encouraged by knowing that people have gone through challenges writing. I feel so encouraged. So that's my contribution. I think I'm going to be networking with Dr. Krishna and maybe some of the people on the panel. Thank you so much for coming and enlightening and encouraging someone like me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other comments, questions you have for me or the panelist? Yeah, while preparing your questions, let me quickly summarize some of the main things that our panelists have pointed out earlier. The first thing was the time management. If you want to write, if you are hungry, I think you should go kitchen and make some foods. And the other thing is, as a scholar in the field, we have to be prepared being the rejection. Every single article will get 1 or 2 rejection before it goes to the next step. And that's happening even for me after publishing many, many articles in the books. And that's the same stories you have heard from the room, from all of our panelists. The writing, nobody loves the writing like this technical work, like the journal article or the book projects. It's a practice. Once you start writing, it goes fast. The other thing we have heard from the 2 of our doctoral students and then panelists that support is essential. Support you can get from your professors or peers. You know, their essential feedbacks are very important to move forward. And also Liz pointed out, Marcia pointed out actually, there are more than 9,000 journals. Yes, there are even more than that. And it's also our time to know which journals is suitable for our field. Also be careful on the predatory journals that ask you to pay and publish tomorrow. There is a promise like this. Also, you have heard from our panelists that it took 4 years to get through one particular article. That was my experience as well. At least I had to wait 2 years or so. And also go by your need, you know, whether you are going up for tenure or promotion or writing for your doctoral requirement. Before doing that, please read to write. That's another feedback that you heard from our panelist. And the other thing is how do we go with? Go with the trusted associations like AERA or STAR or CIES, particularly the professional field in your area, professional organization in your field. So I have taken those things here. And then the other good point came out about the editors or the reviewers. How do they make decisions? Actually, they smell. I smell like a food. As an editor, I smell. If I look into the abstract or overall general formatting, the general layout, that will tell me, the work. I can easily determine an article or a book chapter within a minute. Or the other colleagues have mentioned that write 2 appealing paragraphs. As long as I see something appealing, why I should consider, why is it different from the rest of the, manuscript that I'm collecting for the book or journals. That's something I was taking notes earlier. So again, time to take questions, please.
I think this is from Tian Quinn. Thank you everyone for sharing your insight. I'm wondering, how do you find someone to collaborate on the writing a book chapter? Any successful stories to share? So that's one of the questions.
All right, anyone wants to chime in from the panel?
Hi, I wrote a little response. I think if you can attend a conference in person, it's really those in-person contacts that's the best way to network. And I know that can be very difficult because of the distance to the conference or the cost, but really it's a great investment in terms of lots of things, but particularly meeting people. That's my advice. Making sure you're very active on social media can also be very helpful. There's still an active group of scholars on Twitter. If you have a favorite author, follow them on social media. Oftentimes you'll find your little community of like-minded people following and commenting, and that can be a great way to make connections.
Can I add to that? I think as an emerging scholar, I remember just starting with my colleagues or my cohort, my friends, right? Because you have to start somewhere. Part 2, I think about reaching out to people that have similar interest and research interest as yours, and build a community, but be consistent. There's so many times that people reach out, but they don't follow through that deadlines. And I know someone mentioned deadlines, accountability with other people, right? So if you look at most of our CVs or resumes, a lot of our publications are with colleagues, not too often by ourselves. One of the things that that was an editor in some journals, you shouldn't be plagiarizing, and copying and pasting from your dissertation is plagiarism. So you want to make sure that before you click, before it's published in ProQuest or so on, you can delete it or try to publish before it's posted. That's the other thing, because some journals will ban you from publishing there again if you plagiarize your own work. That's the other thing that I have seen and engaged with other colleagues. But my colleague Colleen brings an excellent point: social media. So what do I do once it is published? Promote it yourself, right? And we haven't even talked about it. In Altmetrics plays a significant role in how journals get ranked and how you could do outreach. And Twitter, it's a good way to get your Altmetrics up by just retweeting your article. So every time you get retweeted, it's like an extra cookie you get.
One of the ways to make contacts is by, just like me, I wrote about the 3 abstracts, and I checked some of the scholars' name, and I sent them by email, wanting to collaborate with them and seeking their advice on the very topic. So I sent about 5 abstracts to some of these scholars. So 2 of them responded, whereas 3, I couldn't hear for 3 of these very scholars. 2 replied and giving me their positive response. And this way, I started partnering with them. So to the person that asked this question, I believe you can as well follow this very option. I believe by the time you send out 3 or 5 abstracts to some scholars that are in the same field with you, I believe 1 or 2 of them must agree, may have agreed to work along with you.
Oh, you got it. So I am a third-year doctoral student at FAU who was just recently honored as a Holmes Scholar. And so one of the things that interests me, in listening to all you talk, and I think it's great and it's wonderful, but they're the fear factor from a student point of view. So how give me some tips on how students can approach a faculty member who might have similar interests in terms of how they would be willing to work with them.
Good question. I asked the panelists just to use the chat room to respond to that question. And also there are a couple of questions. I would like to quickly update and address one of the questions about how to be involved in the journals. I think in the rooms, everyone is pretty much the editor of at least one or two projects. Please reach out directly to them and be requested to be on their editorial board or the project they have, because everyone needs a helping hand. I do have several journals, as you see on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to me or the editor of the particular journals. You can copy me so that you can be on their editorial board. For the STAR Scholars, everyone is required to go through their training. Training is about 1.5 hours. The link should be on their website. If not, please reach out to me as well. I know we have about 5 minutes and I have the second agenda, but continue, the conversation in the chat room. So we have again now 10 professional journals, all led by the editors at different public research universities in the United States. And they are open access, no fees for the publication, and then free to read forever. Also, we have a book project. The book project in partner with Routledge, Taylor and Francis, Springer, and Palgrave Macmillan. We publish roughly 15 to 20 books a year. That's a huge work. So you have those opportunities. Moving on, I'd like to share you that the Star Scholar runs annual project, which is called the Global Essay Project. And the submission can be accepted in 8 different languages. So also I have a good news, time for good news. We have 3 scholars in the room who are recognized for their outstanding work. Is the participant and author of the Global Essay Project. So this is an annual project, as I said earlier. The project invites individuals to share their experiences of studying or working outside their country of origin. Whether you are a former international student, current international student, or study abroad, or faculty on exchange or Fulbright, you have a story to share. And the scholar in the book project, they share their stories. So please join me in congratulating our first winner of the Global Essay Project, Dr. Roger Anderson from Central State University. He is in the room. Congratulations, Rogers. He wrote an essay on returning home, a guardian. Okay, congratulations. The second winner is Dewey Andrani for her essay on the journey from Australia. And congratulations, Dewey. The third winner of the essay project is Jasmine Hertz for her essay, Sun, Strength, and 1,000 Layers of the Sand. It was written in German. As I said earlier, the project are accepted into 8 different languages. This year, we chose only 3 3 languages to include in the book projects. So the good news for all of you is everyone in the room will receive a complimentary copy of this publication. I will follow up after this session. And also I'd like to invite you to explore a Millennium Scholar program, one of the mentor-mentee program where you get the opportunity to participate as a professor or as a student, as a mentor-mentee. Also, we have upcoming conference in Spain from October 9th through 10th. So we have 2 more minutes. We can take questions. Any notes from you all? I know everyone is quiet here. Do you have any final notes or questions, thoughts?
Just thank you all for your time. I greatly appreciate this opportunity to sit here and learn from everyone.
All right, thank you. Then we are at the end of the program. I appreciate all of you for sharing your entire 60 minutes with us. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you at another session. Have a good one.